I didn't expect anyone at my door that late. The street was asleep, just rain whispering against the windows, and the faint hum of my neighbor's wind chimes swaying in the dark. Then came the knock. Slow, hesitant, almost like it didn't want to be heard. When I opened the door, she was there, Ms. Layla, my neighbor from across the hall. Her coat clung to her shoulders, rain still dripping from the hem. She didn't say much, just looked at me like she'd run out of words hours ago. Sorry, she murmured, eyes dropping to the floor. My power's out again. I could have just handed her a candle or flashlight, but something in her voice, the tremor under the calm, made me step aside. Come in. She hesitated for a breath, then crossed the threshold. The apartment suddenly felt too small for the silence that followed. I tried to pretend this was normal, just a neighborly gesture, but the air said otherwise. She smelled faintly of rain and jasmine. Her hair, slightly undone, brushed her cheek as she pushed it back, a nervous habit she probably didn't know she had. I offered her tea. She nodded. While the kettle boiled, she stood near the window, tracing the condensation with one finger. The light from the street lamp caught her profile, soft, tired, beautiful in that way only someone who's lived through years of quiet heartbreak can be. You're still awake, she said after a while, her voice low. Couldn't sleep, I admitted. Too quiet. She smiled, a small, knowing curve of the lips. Quiet isn't always peace, is it? I don't know what made me answer honestly. No, sometimes it's just loneliness with better manners. That made her look at me, really look. And for a moment, it felt like the room stopped breathing. The kettle whistled, sharp and sudden, breaking the spell. She turned away quickly, pretending to study the framed photo on my shelf. I poured the tea, hands unsteady enough to betray me. When she reached for the cup, our fingers brushed. Neither of us pulled back. Not right away. Her skin was cold from the rain, but the touch felt alive. Too real. I caught her gaze, and there it was again, that quiet ache hiding beneath her calm. Thank you, she said softly, but the words sounded heavier than gratitude. She sipped the tea, eyes lowered, and I watched the steam curl up between us, like it was trying to fill the silence we couldn't. Minutes passed. The rain softened. Somewhere down the hall, a clock ticked far too loudly. She glanced at the door once, then at me. It's late, she said, but didn't move. I nodded, though I wasn't sure if I wanted her to leave, or if she wanted to. Then the lights flickered, a single pulse of brightness, and went out again. Complete darkness. I heard her breath catch, the faint clink of her cup against the table. It's all right, I whispered, reaching for my phone to use as a light. But before I could turn it on, her hand found mine in the dark, steady, deliberate this time. We didn't speak. The silence said too much. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky, deep, low, unhurried. When the lights returned a few seconds later, she was still holding my hand, and neither of us moved. Her eyes met mine, wide and searching, something unspoken trembling there. And then, somewhere down the hall, a door opened. A voice, faint, calling her name. She didn't look away from me. Not yet. The tea had gone cold. The rain had stopped. But something else had just begun. Morning came slower than it should have. The rain had stopped, but her presence still lingered in the air, in the scent of jasmine on my couch, in the faint indentation where she'd sat most of the night. I found her standing by the balcony when I woke, wrapped in my old flannel shirt. The city outside was half awake. Motorbikes, distant chatter, the smell of wet asphalt. But here, between us, everything was still. You didn't go home, I said softly. Her shoulders stiffened. I didn't want to wake him, she replied. Then, quieter. Or explain. Him. Her husband. The one I'd only seen twice. Always leaving early, never looking back. She turned, eyes finding mine, and something in her expression faltered, like she regretted saying it out loud. I should go, she whispered. But she didn't. Instead, she sat down at the edge of the couch again, tucking her knees beneath her, fingers tracing the seam of the fabric like she needed something to hold on to. You remind me of someone, she said after a long pause. When I was your age. He used to look at me like the world hadn't already made up its mind about me. There was a smile there, soft but sad. I miss that version of myself sometimes. I didn't know what to say, so I said the wrong thing. Maybe she's still there. Her eyes flicked up, searching, careful. You shouldn't say things like that, she murmured. I meant it. I know. The silence between us shifted, not awkward, but heavy. Her gaze stayed on me a little too long, and I caught myself studying the faint lines at the corners of her mouth, the way her hair fell slightly out of place. She noticed. Of course she did. Don't, she said, but it wasn't firm. More like a warning she didn't want to give. I looked away, pretending to check my phone. My hand brushed hers on the cushion, just enough to make her inhale sharply. Neither of us moved. It's not fair, she said finally, voice trembling a little. You're too young. And I'm not old, I interrupted. Wiser, she corrected, with a smile that tried to close the distance but failed miserably. She stood then, taking a slow breath, as if rebuilding a wall she'd accidentally lowered. Her fingers grazed my shoulder on the way past, not enough to mean anything, yet far too much to mean nothing. Thank you for last night, she said, standing by the door. Anytime. Her hand stayed on the doorknob, unmoving. That's the problem, she whispered, almost to herself. And before she could leave, the wind pushed the door slightly open, then closed again, that soft, echoing click breaking the moment like glass. When she finally stepped out, her perfume lingered in the air. I stood there long after, tracing the warmth her fingers left on my shoulder, realizing that whatever line we weren't supposed to cross, we already had, in silence. It had been a week since that night, but everything after felt tinted by her. The scent of rain, the sound of her footsteps in the hallway, the way her laugh echoed faintly when she talked to the neighbor across from us. I told myself I'd stop noticing. I didn't. That evening, she came again, not at midnight this time, but close enough. She stood outside my door with a plate of food and that same hesitant smile. I made too much, she said. A simple excuse. We both knew it. We ate in the kitchen, lights dim, voices low. Every time our hands reached for the same glass or utensil, we both paused, a fraction too long, before pretending not to notice. You've been avoiding me, she said suddenly. I looked up, caught. I thought maybe you wanted space. She gave a small, humorless laugh. If I wanted space, I wouldn't be here. The air thickened. She looked down, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear, fingers trembling slightly. You make things complicated, she added. I haven't done anything, I said. Her eyes lifted, steady now. That's exactly it. We both went quiet. The only sound was the hum of the refrigerator. Then, a sharp knock at the door. She flinched. Who? Probably just Sammy, I said quickly, heart pounding. My friend sometimes dropped by unannounced, and suddenly the world felt too small. Her eyes widened, panic flickering beneath her calm. I can't. Wait here, I whispered, stepping to the door. I cracked it open. Sammy's grin met me. Bro, you disappeared again. What are you? I leaned against the frame. Just busy. He tried to peek inside. Busy doing what? Work, I lied. A pause. He smirked. All right, man. Don't turn into a ghost. When I finally shut the door, I found her standing near the table, frozen. The color had drained from her face. He can't see me here, she said softly. You understand that. I nodded, but something inside me twisted. Yeah, I get it. The words felt heavier than I meant them to. She stepped closer, voice trembling but low. This, whatever this is, it can't be seen. People talk. They always do. I don't care what they say. I do, she said, almost breaking on the words. We stood there, inches apart, silence roaring between us. Her breath brushed against my cheek as she turned her head slightly, not quite facing me, not quite pulling away. I could see the pulse in her throat, quick and unsteady. She smelled like rain again, faintly sweet, heartbreakingly familiar. Her hand lifted, stopped halfway, then fell. We shouldn't, she whispered. I know, but neither of us moved. For a moment, it felt like the whole world had narrowed to that breath, that heartbeat, that almost. Then she stepped back, eyes closing briefly, fighting something neither of us could name. Good night, she said, her voice barely holding together. I didn't answer, because if I did, I might not let her leave. The door clicked shut behind her, but her nearness stayed, louder than any sound in the room. Days passed in fragments. Her laughter in the stairwell, the faint click of her heels fading down the hall, the scent of her perfume drifting through my open window. I told myself I could live with the distance. I lied. When she finally knocked again, it wasn't polite this time. It was quick, urgent, the kind of knock that didn't ask for permission. I opened the door, and before I could speak, she said, We need to stop this. I froze. Stop what? Her eyes lifted to mine, and the question died in my throat. You know what? She whispered. The looks. The visits. This thing. She took a breath, steadied herself. I can't sleep anymore. I keep thinking someone will see. My husband will start asking questions. And I. Her voice broke slightly, and that was worse than any confession could have been. I stepped closer before I thought it through. Then why come here? I don't know, she said, her voice trembling. I thought if I said it out loud, it would make it easier. Did it? She shook her head. The rain had returned outside, soft, rhythmic, the same as that first night. I could feel her trying to build distance even as she stood a breath away. You're not supposed to make me feel this, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Feel what? She met my eyes, unguarded, raw, alive. Something in me cracked open. I reached up, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. She didn't move, didn't stop me. My fingers lingered just long enough to feel her shiver. This isn't right, she murmured. Then tell me to stop, I said, voice barely steady. Her lips parted, but no words came out. The space between us dissolved. I could feel the warmth of her skin, the faint tremble in her breath. She leaned back slightly, as if afraid her body might betray what her mind wanted to resist. You don't understand, she said. If anyone knew. I don't care who knows. I cut in, softer than I meant to. She looked at me then, really looked, like she was searching for a reason to walk away, and couldn't find one. I'm not someone you should want, she said. Too late. Her breath hitched, eyes flicking down to my lips before darting away. The air was too still, too charged. Then, the sharp vibration of her phone broke through the silence. We both startled. She turned away, fumbling for her bag, voice shaking. It's him. Her husband. I stepped back, hands at my sides, heart pounding like something had just been ripped out mid-beat. She silenced the phone without answering. The screen dimmed. When she looked back at me, something had changed, her voice low, trembling. I shouldn't be here. But even as she said it, she took a step closer. Close enough that her whisper brushed my ear. Tell me to go. I didn't. The rain outside grew louder. And between us, everything else went quiet. The next day, everything felt wrong. The hallway that had once felt like our secret corridor now buzzed with tension. Her door was closed, curtains drawn. I tried not to knock. I failed. She opened it halfway, her expression unreadable, tired, guarded. You shouldn't be here. I just wanted to make sure you're okay. I'm not, she said quietly. For a long moment, neither of us moved. Then she stepped aside. Come in. The room was dim, the air heavy with unsaid things. A half-packed suitcase sat open on the couch. You're leaving? I asked. Her voice cracked faintly. He knows. It took me a second to understand. Your husband? She nodded once. He saw the messages. My throat went dry. We never. I know, she said quickly. But words were enough. The silence after that felt suffocating. She walked toward the window, rubbing her temples. He thinks there's more. He's not wrong, is he? I didn't answer. I couldn't. She turned, eyes glistening, trembling just slightly. Tell me he's wrong. The lie hovered on my tongue, fragile, trembling like her hands. But I couldn't make myself say it. She exhaled sharply, the sound halfway between a laugh and a sob. God, I thought I could control this. I took a step forward. You don't have to go. You think this is about choice? She said, almost angry now. He's already looking for a reason to leave. I just gave him one. Her shoulders sagged. I told him you were just a neighbor. Am I? I asked. She froze. The rain started again, faint against the glass. She looked at me, and whatever was left of her defenses began to crumble. You shouldn't make me feel this, she whispered. I stepped closer, close enough to see the reflection of the rain in her eyes. Then why do you keep letting me? Her lips parted, a breath caught halfway. Because you see me, she said. Not who I was, not who I pretend to be. Just me. For a heartbeat, the room blurred. I reached up, brushing my thumb against her cheek, feeling her tremble under my touch. This can't end well, she murmured. I know. Her hand found mine, fingers tightening, not pulling away this time. And then her phone vibrated again on the table. We both looked at it. The screen lit up with his name. She didn't move. Neither did I. The sound stopped, leaving a ringing quiet in its place. She turned toward me, breath uneven. If I open that, everything ends. Then don't, I said, voice breaking. She stared at the phone a moment longer, then reached over and switched it off. The gesture was small, almost casual, but everything inside that silence shifted. When she looked back at me, her eyes were steady, resolved. "I'm not running anymore," she said. And for the first time, it wasn't rain or guilt or fear that filled the room. It was the unmistakable pull of something that couldn't be undone. The night she turned off her phone, something shifted, not loud, not dramatic, just final. I didn't ask her to stay, and she didn't ask if she could. We both knew neither question needed to be spoken anymore. The rain had stopped, but the room still carried that hushed, electric weight, like the moment before thunder breaks. She stood by the window, arms crossed, her reflection shimmering in the glass. I watched her in silence, the faint light painting her face in silver and shadow. "You know this can't last," she said finally. "I know," I whispered. She turned, her eyes searching mine, not for reassurance, but for truth. "Then why are we still here?" I took a slow step toward her. "Because walking away feels worse than being wrong." Her breath hitched, soft, unsteady. I could feel the gravity between us again, the same pull that had been quietly building since the night she knocked on my door. She shook her head, voice barely holding steady. "You're too young to ruin yourself over someone like me. And you're too beautiful to pretend you don't want to be seen." That made her look away, but not far. My hand brushed hers, not planned, not hesitant this time. She didn't move. "I hate that you make this feel simple," she murmured. "It's not simple," I said. "It's honest." Her fingers tightened around mine, just slightly. "You don't know what honesty costs." I stepped closer until we shared the same breath. "Then show me." She laughed, quiet, broken. "You don't even know what you're asking." "I know what it feels like," I said, my voice low. "To want someone and not be allowed to." The words hung between us, trembling. She looked up, and for the first time, there was no mask, no careful restraint. Just her. I reached up and brushed a lock of hair behind her ear. My hand lingered there, tracing the edge of her jaw. Her eyes fluttered shut for a second, a surrender she didn't mean to give. When she opened them again, we were too close to pretend anymore. Her whisper barely made it through the air between us. "If I let this happen, I lose everything." I swallowed. "If you walk away, you'll lose me." She stared at me like the choice itself was tearing her in half. For a long, fragile heartbeat, neither of us moved. Then she stepped forward, just enough that our foreheads almost touched. Her voice trembled. "You don't make this easy. Neither do you." We stood there, not kissing, not speaking, just breathing the same air, the same ache, the same impossible truth. Finally, she whispered, "Now you know." And that was it. The moment everything became clear. This wasn't about age or circumstance. It was about recognition. Two people who found a mirror in each other and didn't know how to look away. When she finally stepped back, her eyes said everything her words couldn't. "We've already crossed it." The next morning, the city felt different. Not louder, not quieter, just real again. The kind of morning where sunlight touches everything it's not supposed to, including the things you've been hiding. Layla sat on the edge of my couch, hair undone, her gaze lost in the streaks of gold light spilling through the blinds. She looked tired, but peaceful in a way I hadn't seen before. We hadn't said much after last night. We didn't need to. I poured coffee and handed her a cup. Our fingers brushed, gentle, familiar now. She smiled faintly. "You don't even ask if I'm staying." I met her eyes. "You already are." She laughed softly, shaking her head. "You make it sound simple." "Maybe it doesn't have to be complicated," I said. "Maybe it just is." Her smile faded into something softer, an ache that wasn't quite pain. "He called again this morning," she said quietly. I nodded. "And?" I didn't answer. The confession hung there, unsteady but honest. She looked down at her hands, turning the mug slowly. "For years, I was scared to disappoint someone. My husband, my family, even myself. I thought being careful meant being safe." Her eyes lifted, meeting mine. But safety never made me feel alive. I stepped closer, kneeling so we were eye level. "You don't owe anyone permission to live." Her breath trembled, and for a moment, she didn't blink. Then she reached out, her hand finding the back of my neck, pulling me just close enough that her forehead rested against mine. The world felt small, just the sound of our breaths, the faint hum of morning, and the warmth between us. "This shouldn't have happened," she whispered, voice barely holding together. "It did," I said. And maybe that's enough, V. She closed her eyes, and for a long time, neither of us spoke. When she finally pulled back, she wasn't crying. She was smiling, the kind of smile that comes after a storm, quiet but certain. Do you ever think, she said softly, that people come into your life not to stay, but to remind you what it feels like to feel again? Maybe, I said, but some people feel too real to be temporary. She looked at me then, no hesitation, no fear, and leaned in, pressing a soft kiss to my forehead. It wasn't a promise. It was something better, a moment that didn't need one. When she stood to leave, I didn't stop her. She lingered at the door, glancing back one last time. I'll see you, she said. I smiled. You already do. The door closed gently behind her. The room was warm, sunlight spilling across the floor. For the first time, the quiet didn't feel empty. It felt earned.